And now, from Grid Square Echo Mike 48, this is 100 Watts and a Wire.
Well, hello to you, friends. It's Christian. My call sign is Kilo Zero Sierra Tango Hotel, joined by Steve, Whiskey 7 United Delta India. Hello, Steve.
Hello, Christian.
You never really go too far, but you know, when you start a new one, it sounds like a new one. And this is how we're doing it here on YouTube. We're recording the show live and streaming it out. Welcome to everybody who's around on the chat. This week's topic is education in ham radio, and it's so important. We were talking not too long ago about the importance of mentors and having helmers, people, somebody that one-on-one, and how important that is. Educators are doing things with bigger groups of people. They're planning things out. It's not as casual. It's focused. So talk about education a little bit, Steve, and why you think it's so important going forward.
Oh, it's very important. I mean, it's, our hobby just evolves. It's just things are changing. The technology is changing. We're doing bigger and better things. And we need to continue that. And then we also need to continue the basics and set that foundation as we get newer people into the hobby. Most people they're not technically savvy, and that's not their fault. Everyone comes from different backgrounds, and having education is kind of bringing them in and understanding why are things the way they are? Why is this, if I want to work 40 meters, why is a dipole 66 feet long? And that's where the education comes in and helps understand. And then hopefully that just creates that spark and that interest and to dig in more. And so education is very, very important, on the technical side. But then there's also, the operating and the different modes and every aspect of the hobby. So education is very, very important.
We're going to be bringing up the recipient in just a minute. I want to let you know we're going to give away another antenna today. If you put your call sign at any time in the chat now, since we started the live stream and recording the shows, you will be qualified. We'll pick a winner. Each week we picked one that was in the chat from last week. We'll announce that probably as we get a little closer, about 15, 20 minutes or so. But first, we got a guest, and I want to bring him up here. And this ought to be fun. Steve, you know this guy. You know him. Let's get ready.
The man.
Look at this guy.
Neil!
Look at Neil. Look at Neil.
Superstar.
I just got a text from Jocelyn, KD8VRX, and it says, "You ready, Regis?"
All right, we're gonna have to explain this inside joke, but I'm not letting you go. You're gonna be with me for a while here. I'm gonna turn your audio just a little bit, but I can hear you okay. So Neil has got a show, Ham Talk Live, and we talk together. It's an audio podcast. He does it every Thursday night. What time you kick off? 8:00, right?
8 Central, 9 Eastern.
Gotcha. And so he's been running for a long time. Thursday evenings, we talk, and every once in a while, I'll get a call from Neil. Hey, you want to do the show? And I'm like, when? In about 12 minutes. You free? And I'd say, this is weird. And so I became his Regis. It was David Letterman and Regis had this great relationship. And if there was somebody dropped off and couldn't be on the show, he would call Regis, I guess, who lived close by. And it was always wonderful, much like ours. His ratings would go through the roof anytime I came on. I think the highest ratings ever, right, Neil?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, my ratings right through the basement. It was like, thanks. I probably should have called someone else. But that's where the Regis reference comes from. I'm really proud of you, Neil. We've been friends for a long time here, and you were grinding it out and just trying to teach these kids. So it's so nice to see that you were awarded this thing. What does it mean to you? Talk about it a little bit.
Well, it's anytime you get an award, you feel great. It's a great honor, but this is a big one for sure. And the thing that really sets this apart is the namesake. I mean, the story, of Carol Perry is the story of ham radio and education, and we go all the way back to square one. I mean, when she had just started, teaching, she has my QSL card sitting in her classroom uh, as a motivation. And, as time went on and she did articles for World Radio and did articles for this magazine and that magazine. And in college, we flew her and Gordon West in uh, to do a forum on youth when I was like a junior in college. Uh, so we worked together on that. And and again, as time goes on, she's doing all these youth forums at Dayton, and I finally sent in her some speakers, and I think I've had 3 or 4 now. Some of them were from my school, some of them weren't. Um, but it's just been this ongoing relationship for the 45 years that I've been a ham. And I told Karen this story the other day. A few years ago, I think it was either the first or second year Hamvention was at Xenia. Um, Radio Club of America decided to do a fundraiser um, for the youth activities program that Carol does, and they made these little code oscillator kits. One of the famous things she did when she taught in middle school was to create these little code oscillators. It's just a little straight key, but in a jewelry box. And the kids would build this little code oscillator, and they would sit around and they would send Morse code. And she would tell these stories of, she had to tell the kids, okay, you gotta put them away now. You gotta put them away, because they're all like, I can send messages in code and nobody will know what's going on except, for the people in this room. And it's like, so it was a fabulous thing. So they decided, it was an anniversary of it, of the beginning of it. They decided to mass produce a bunch of these kits and have some assembled to sell as a fundraiser. And they gave away some of them at Carol's forums at Dayton. And I won one of them. And immediately afterwards, okay, Carol, here you go. You got to sign this. So I have this autographed code oscillator that bears her name. So the connection there is just over the top, but it's fabulous to be recognized for, a lot of work. I won't deny it. It's been a lot of work, a lot of time. But,
Well, you're a little different than some of the other educators, because you're doing it in a high school system. Going back to originating this program in your high school, talk about that, getting that off the ground, and some of the challenges.
yeah, when I first started teaching, my first year was in an inner city school, and I was kind of part time, and I was doing like in school suspension part time, and yeah, it was kind of weird. But the next year, I ended up at a different school, and when I walked in, I noticed this 50-foot tower right outside of my classroom. And I'm like, hmm. And yeah, it turns out back in the 70s, there was a ham radio club, and they were getting ready to take down the tower. And I'm like, you're not taking down that tower if I can help it. And they're just like, oh, but it's a safety risk. I'm like, it's inside of a locked courtyard. We'll use it. So dug through the ceiling, found the cables, hooked up a radio. They were doing amateur television, actually. So it was a 440 dipole array that was up there on the tower. Fabulous antenna. So I talked them into putting another antenna out there, dipole, and got an HF rig going, and started up the club. And luckily we had, some kids that were interested. And then when I went to Bloomington South in 2001, I wanted to carry that over. And so, that was one of the first things I did after I got established was, okay, where can we put some antennas? Where can we go? And just had to start that one from scratch. But primarily what I did was talk about it in chemistry class when we get to the electromagnetic spectrum. We talk about electrons and how they move in a wave. And you can't see that. You can't visualize that. So we make the analogy to light wave, sound wave, radio wave. And so I pull out the HT and start, showing them, okay, here's an AM signal, here's an FM signal from broadcast stations. Do you notice any difference in the reception? And the school that I'm at is like a Faraday cage. I mean, I used to listen to music on the radio while I was grading during my prep period. Can't do it. You can't get anything. But the HT will pick up just barely. So it's attenuated enough that you can notice the difference between, something on 1370 kilohertz and 95 megahertz easily. And so we just start talking about, the power of that wave being able to get through the walls better than the other. And then we start talking about other things that you can listen to, like the drive up at McDonald's 2 blocks away, like the bus channel. And one time I was demonstrating this, and one of the bus drivers got on the radio and says, hey, can you call over to South High School and let them know I just drove over the water hose and it sprung a leak and it's spraying everywhere. And of course the class just, goes bonkers. They're like, what? That really happened? You can really listen to McDonald's, the drive up, and then at the end it's, well, if you're interested in this Thursday afternoons, after school, we have ham radio club. And it's just progressed. Every year they bring in new kids. A lot of the band kids. Now I used to get that because of the Morse code, the rhythm, and all that kind of thing. I don't know what it is, but band kids. I'd say we're about 70% band kids. Don't know. But they just keep coming. We promote it. We had a television show that was once a week inside the school. And so they would do a feature on us. And so we would talk about contesting and our successes with contesting. And that was a big thing, too, because these kids are competitive. And so knowing that we were a world champion or a world runner-up, in a contest. I know I'm not supposed to call it a contest, but they keep score. The kids see it as a contest. So, our success on that as it grew, and the kids started raising money, and I gave them options. Okay, we can put up another vertical, we can put up a tri-band beam, or we can go get a stepper. And they're like, oh, let's get the stepper. And I'm like, okay, you realize, this is going to cost about $8,000 to $10,000 by the time we get the antenna and the rotor and the tower and get it put in and, do it all. It's not just the $4,000 for the antenna. Let's do it. They went out there and did it. They raised the money.
You've got a built-in. You use chemistry to sort of inject this mindset. You've got a built-in way to get to these to the kids, and you see this response coming in, and I think it is the exposure. If you don't like jazz or you don't like Duke Ellington, at least if you hear it, you get to pick if you do or you don't. So you're exposing these kids to it. And I think that's incredible, and it's supported by the school. But you've had some significant hams, come out. Like, you've got serious contest kids come out of there. Like, you're not just getting some kids exposed. You are doing that, which in itself is wonderful. They're actually going, straight in, feet first, all the way in, and becoming like really strong contesters.
We've had a lot of contesters come out of it because that is one of their favorite things. The next favorite thing is transmitter hunting, because they get to drive. But coming up with things for them to do that interest them, and it changes from year to year. Some years I'll do digital stuff, PSK 31, or FT8 or something. The next year, no, they want to be on that microphone. Sometimes they want code, and we've done a couple of Morse code classes. It varies, and so we change that up with them, and they really drive it, and that's kind of rolled over more recently into this whole youth on the air thing. The whole idea of Yoda and the success that they've had with it is that it's the kids teaching the kids. So that was probably one of the hardest things for me to do early on in teaching, was to back off. Yes. I want to tune the radio for them. I want to find somebody for them to talk to. Okay, here it is. Now here's the mic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's, yeah.
And that was one of the hardest things was, I felt like I should be tuning this. I should be doing this. I should be doing that. No, it's, here's how you do this. Now you do it.
How did you deal with different levels? Your skill levels. I mean, because you get new crop in, you've got to kind of do that tuning for the newer ones, but then you've got some that are excelling and taking off and actually contesting. How did you balance that?
Those are your new teachers. Those are your new teachers. After you train them, then they train
the others. Yep.
Exactly what they did when they started Yoda Hub. Mm-hmm. And that's where it's headed. And right now I am in that, okay, I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to get all this stuff organized. Mm-hmm. But I got to keep up here. Okay, in 1 or 2 years, that's got to change. Mm-hmm. The kids have got to make this thing work. I'm setting up all the groundwork. I'm getting it all ready. I'm showing them what it's supposed to look like. And then
let them run with it. You just facilitate it, and that will have more impact on the future coming in. Is that the youth is going to be teaching and it'll be more receptive. And I mean, granted, they're receptive of you, but that playing it forward is going to have a huge impact.
Neil, talk about Yoda. Talk about
Yoda Month. Great example. I mean, last year, I was kind of arm twisted a little bit. Hey, you need to do this. I'm like, I'm trying to get a camp going. Come on. So I said, okay, let me see if I can get somebody to do it. So I call up Bryant Rascal, KG5 HBO, and say, hey, Bryant, would you like to do this? I will help you. I will lead you through this. would you like to do this? And he's like, yeah, I'd like to do that. You know, he wanted to know what he needed to do. So I told him, and he put together this Yoda month thing, and it went fabulous. But then this year it was, hey, Bryant, it's October. Better get going on Yoda month. Let me know if you have any questions. And he ran with it,
Cool.
made it better, bigger. We're going to release some numbers here real soon. We're actually finishing up the report. I should say he is finishing up the report. He emails me, asks me a couple of questions. I answer them, send it back, and so you know, the Yoda month thing is now in year 2, and Bryant's taken it. So and then I haven't had this talk with him yet, but he gets to train the next person. When that time comes, when he doesn't do it anymore, he gets to train the next person.
He needs to start looking for his next person.
Yeah, he does. We're going to have to do that. Hopefully, he'll continue for a few years, but yeah, we're going to have to get him an assistant. But I look forward to the day when the Youth on the Air camp finally gets off the ground, and we can do the same thing with it. I mean, now that one won't quite be as big of a turnover because there still has to be some adult supervision, but you know, they can start planning what they want to do during the week. They can start, you know, working on logistics and arrangements and all that kind of thing, and you know, the director can just kind of follow up with them and make sure things are right and supervised and go with it. So,
well, you're a gardener out there. You're a gardener. I'm really proud of you and our friendship. I'm glad that you've been supportive of me. We've been supportive of each other and our endeavors and your show. People who are listening or watching now should check out Neil's Ham Talk Live. When he told me I'm going to do a live phone-in ham radio show, I was like, are you out of your flipping mind? Are you crazy? Do you have a dump button? Are you nuts? Have you heard the F-bomb and how it's used and all this? But you've really turned it into something great. So I encourage everybody to check out what Neil's doing. Congratulations.
Yeah, I remember you saying that.
Exactly. That was my exact words. Are you bleeping?
And I said the same thing about the Facebook group. Are you nuts? You don't have to watch that 24/7.
He said, why do you want to build this community? I don't know how you build a community.
And I'm looking at my screen, and there's this little red box up here in the top left corner. And it says live.
Right. I know. I have a lot of problems. And it's like a camera. Why would you want to put a camera on this face and this head? But anyway, you know, but I really am proud of you. And I think, like, man, this is so fitting. You know, it didn't surprise me at all. I was just like, oh yeah, cool, Neil, yeah, sure. Why didn't you get
time?
You know, it's like, you know, but come back on and talk about all these great youth programs that you're working on. And I should say you're also a colleague over Amateur Radio Newsline. So we've got lots of threads that kind of bring us together.
And thank you, by the way. We got a lovely box yesterday. The content is sitting right here next to me. From the wedding gift. So thank you for that. And Julie's sitting here. I'm at Julie's. I'm over in the.
You're taking care of her right now.
Campus. Yeah. She had some eye surgery she's recovering from, but she says thank you as well, and thanks for having me on. And you know, next time you need a guest on 2 minutes notice, let me know. I'll be here.
You bet. You bet. Yeah, I'll give you exactly maybe 90 seconds to prepare. Never seen a guy move that fast to get on a show before. And then I tell him, I dressed up, I wore a tie, and he's like, it's audio, dummy. And I'm like, oh, right. All right, buddy.
So watch for stuff about Youth on the Air. We're getting ready to ramp up. Pre-registration is going to start in about a month for those who were supposed to go to 2020. And then we'll be looking at filling up the remaining 3 or 4 spots. in March. So look for that. And we just started a mailing list on the website. So youthontheair.org, check it out. And also there's going to be some surveys coming out soon. So keep an eye out for that.
Neil, is there a place on the website that people can go and donate and help fund the org?
Go to youthontheair.org. Up at the top right, there's a link for donate. And down at the bottom, there's a click here to subscribe. So we're going to start doing an email list. So just got that set up here a couple weeks ago. So it's on there. We haven't really promoted it yet, but now we are.
There you go.
Got it. Hey, man,
well, congratulations.
Too. This is great. We'll have you back on again soon. And best to your bride. I hope her eyes recover quickly. Mm-hmm. And she can see you in sickle fight and get you. 73 Neil. We'll catch you again soon, buddy.
73 Neil. Bye-bye, buddy.
Did you know that Nuts and Bolts has the highest readership of magazines specifically written for the electronics community? For over 40 years, Nuts and Bolts magazine has been bringing microcontroller and electronics projects to hobbyists, engineers, technicians, and experimenters around the world. Every issue is full of the latest technology, electronics theory, analog circuit design, robotics, home automation, communications, and more. Join the Nuts and Bolts community and become a member today. You get 2 years of the printed magazine and the online digital edition for only $49.95. You also receive full access to all web content with downloadable PDF files, plus the e-newsletter filled with popular projects from past issues. Go right now to nutsvolts.com to subscribe. That's 2 years of Nuts and Bolts magazine printed on paper and delivered to your door for only $49.95. Go to nutsvolts.com today to subscribe. Nuts and Bolts magazine. There's more to build with Nuts and Bolts.
All right. Welcome back here. Christian, my call sign's K0STH. Steve is here, W7UDI. And always fun to spend time with Neil. Really proud of his work.
Yeah.
It's a grind. You know, if you wanted to get in there and see the nitty gritty of that work that has to be done. And, you know, and that's on top of a workload of, as an educator, as a teacher, it's on top of. So special guy, and appreciate our friendship.
And congratulations again. I couldn't think of anybody more deserving of that award than Neil. That's just
so we vote for him to win it again next year.
Yeah, year after year. So
year after year. It's time for us to take some questions. We encourage you to submit your questions to us. We may not know all of the answers in real time. Frankly, Steve doesn't even want to know what the questions are. So I could be like, can you give me the square root of? And he'd be like, So sometimes we may have things where we need to go back and research. But, you know, you're welcome. I dropped the form there in the chat. So if you have a question, it should go there. And we will answer these in the order they come as best we can. So let's start off. We have a question from Ben. Ben says, I'm looking for a power supply to run my FT991 and my ALS 500M amp. Any suggestions?
Big. I see. You're going to need at least a minimum 50 amps. Just 23 amps for the FT991. Well, yeah, let's see, you feed it about 50 watt. And then that amp is going to draw a lot of power. So minimum 50 amps, maybe 75 amp for a single supply. Consider maybe having two supplies. One for the radio, at least a 30 amp supply for the radio, and then 50 amps for the amplifier. Just right off the top of my head, but yeah, you're gonna need a lot of current. That ALS 500 is 12. If I'm remembering right, that's 12 volt amp, and I got to look up the current requirements, but I'm thinking 50.
Okay, very good. Thank you for the question. Again, you can drop them into the chat. You can also drop them on the forum that we have in the chat. A lot of things happening there. And they're pulled from the Facebook page, all sorts of different areas and questions. This one we got a couple of weeks ago from Ian. Is there any reason or benefit to get the Grohl if you're not in commercial radio or television?
Bragging rights. If you're not into it, where I work, we have to have it. So, and I've had mine since the late 70s, early 80s, and early 80. I got mine in 80. That's right. Because 85.
Now this stands for General Radio Operating License.
Radio license, yes. And it used to be the first, second, third class licenses. So it was a requirement that you need it. But if you get in and work on any aircraft or marine radios, then yes, you have to have it. It's still a requirement that you have the Grohl. And if you get into working into my industry where I work in the utility sector, a lot of companies are requiring that as basically get your foot in the door. So having it, if you have your extra license, there's a good chance you could probably get through the Grohl. There's lots of study materials out there. And what's cool about it, it's lifetime. You take the test one time and that's it. You're done. And you have that license forever. So if you're getting into the business, yes, get it. You might not ever use it, but at least you have it. And if you're not into the business, you can use it as bragging rights amongst your friends.
Our friend Ed, he writes, verticals with a radio field is an unbalanced antenna, but is a vertical with a resonant counterpoise like a dipole and hence balanced a 72 ohm feed. In recent times, we talked about some end-fed antennas. We talked about different things. And here's a vertical question.
The vertical was a resonant, okay, so you're talking about a vertical dipole for the most part, because that's still a balanced antenna. It's your vertical ground mounted or with radials, elevated radials is an unbalanced antenna, but because the counterpoise is 90 degrees to your vertical, and then typically a vertical dipole is still a dipole, it's going to be balanced. And yeah, it comes down to the feed point, because a vertical is on your true vertical, your feed point's around 36 ohms, somewhere around that, in that general area, versus a dipole is 72, 73 ohms at the feed point.
There you go. And that's coming off of our Ballons, Onions. We had a show a few weeks ago now. All right, a friend asked us now, what do you guys know about Ham Shack Hotline? Do you use it? I have one, but don't use it much.
It's a VoIP application. I've heard about it. I really haven't looked into it, but it's another VoIP application. And what's VoIP? It's voice over IP is what VoIP stands for. So it's and like All-Star uses that, if you're familiar with All-Star, and some of the other digital modes that use the internet basically to communicate with is the VoIP application. So, but personally, I've seen it. I think it runs on a Raspberry Pi or something. I personally didn't really delve into it that deeply, but I hear it a lot, and people are getting it set up.
Okay. Probably extend the questions a little bit today. We did a little action with our friend Neil. Mm-hmm. Here's a question that came in this morning. We did Winter Field Day. We talked about Winter Field Day last week. Larry, Kilo 0 Hotel India Oscar. I see what you did there, Larry in Ohio. Are you excited for Winter Field Day, and what setup will you be using? Well, I guess I can start first. My idea is to go out to the old wooden shed. If you dig back into the archives of the show, I've got an old wooden structure, an old wooden shed at the edge of the woods, or a little bit further away from the house, and I like to go out there and put a mast up. It's not insulated. It's got big old gaps, and every once in a while you might see a mouse or something like that run through. So in other words, it's cold. I would be out of the elements if it was raining or snowing on that day. For me, I'll do the 7300. I'll take the 7300 out there, probably depending on how cold. But I'd probably do an off-center fed dipole. That way I'm getting 20 and 40, and I built it myself. I know what it's going to do out there at that height, about 25 feet. And I think that's it. Maybe I'll touch it up on the tuner if I need to, but if it's 2 to 1 or under, I don't really get too crazy with it. That's what I'm going to operate on, and maybe a cooler full of beer. Steve, what are you thinking? If you're not working, saving lives, you'll be in the warmth of your own damn shack.
Yeah. I'm going lazy man way.
I understand. I may be
I'm just going to throw out contacts, give points.
I might be giving points too. It depends on, what comes our way on that weekend. And you never know. A young family first, different things, what may happen to you. But that's my pretty standard portable setup. I'm trying to get Steve to get his portable rig together. Maybe we'll get him into a little bit of solar. That'd be nice too. I could probably throw out one of the Power Film solar. I do keep that, and I've got a Bioenno battery, and so that's kind of what I'm doing, even on a warm day, is kind of how I go out there and do it. All right, here's a question talking about balance and off-center fed dipoles. This may relate. Our friend Todd asked, I think I need a 4-to-1 balun on my 133-foot off-center fed dipole. Is that correct?
Yes. You do definitely need the 4-to-1 balun.
Yeah, I've made that mistake before, and I didn't really understand it. I actually grabbed a 1-to-1 and built this antenna that sucked. Worst antenna in the whole world. And I cut it perfectly. Soldering job looks so good. I was like, what is wrong with this terrible crap antenna? Mm-hmm. It was a 1-to-1. I put a 1-to-1 on there and would mistake it. Do you want to talk a little bit about why there would be a 4-to-1 as opposed to anything else?
So we talked about that the dipole, the impedance at the feed point is 72 ohms or 73 ohms. Well, a off-center fed dipole is you got approximately 64% length on one leg, 36% on the other leg. Give or take. There's some designs that go a little less on the long, a little longer, but 64, 36 is kind of an average. Well, that point that where you split the wires, that feed point is about 200 ohms. So this is where the 4-to-1 balun comes into play. It takes that 200 ohms, transforms it back down to 50 ohms, which matches your coax, which in turn goes back into your radio at 50 ohms. So that's why the need of a 4-to-1 balun.
A good deal. I know we're pushing up toward the end of what we normally do, but we did run a little later. We can probably do about 5 more minutes, and then everybody will be running for the rest stops because we're full of coffee. Let's take one from Todd. Todd's Kilo Mike 4 Oscar Charlie Juliet. He sent this in through the forum in the chat. You're welcome to do so as well. Would the reception on a rhombic antenna be worth the trouble of putting it together versus building a beverage antenna? I have plenty of space. Any thoughts on those two? I can repeat this question as well. If you'd like.
What band? So beverage is really good for like 160 and stuff, and that's why it's brought up. It reduces the noise on there. Rhombic is a huge antenna, very directional, and if you can get a rhombic up, way to go, man. That is probably the antenna for directionality, but it takes up a lot of space. And but for simplicity, I'd go with the beverage, and it's really easy. You don't have to. But if you want the challenge and you want an antenna that's gonna, as they say, talk, it's that's the antenna. But you got to put up a lot of them if you want to kind of work the world with it, or just decide, okay, I'm going to put up this rhombic and I'm going to have its max gain go towards Europe, and that's it. You're fixed, and you'll be 5'9" in Dusseldorf with 5 watts. So, but I think for overall, for listening and stuff, I would go with the beverage and the simplicity of it, and versus the rhombic. But man, that is the antenna. There was a gentleman, W6AM, Don, I can't remember his last. I'm fading on his down in Southern California, down in the Palos Verdes area, and he had the rhombic farm, and holy smokes, what a station that man had. And there's a lot of history on W6AM. So Don out of Southern California and his rhombic farm. Did I? All righty. So it looks like I lost Christian here for a second. And so let's see, anything else we have in the chat room. So let's shift gears here a little bit. So I know, what was it, Don? What was it? Sorry for the confusion. KB2YSI was talking about snow on the dipole, and it was drooping. So I don't think the snow would be on there, but we ended up. I would suspect it's probably ice on the antenna, and which kind of drooping it down. So if you can bring it down, you might want to tap it off and stuff like that. Is another way. And then just got a note that Christian just lost power, so it's unfortunate. But oh well. Let me let's see if we got any other questions in the chat room. So just I got the growl in the early. So Joe had talked about getting the growl in the early '80s because he wanted to operate on a board onto a radio station. It's still, and still having it 35 years. Having the growl is super great. It's like I said, with for work and things like that. But just studying for that alone is just fantastic, and you're able to increase your knowledge and in general in electronics and use that knowledge here in the hobby. Hey, good to have you back, buddy.
Well, I don't know who's out back doing this motion to my stuff, but I tell you, I live in a pretty rough neighborhood.
Yeah.
Hey, let's do, sorry about that. I don't know, that dipping out like that is a little wacky. I appreciate your patience on that. Let's do one more question. We'll button things up for today. This may be fitting for our winter time. Let's check this out. Jeffrey, Kilo 1 Juliet Delta Papa. How does cold change the characteristics of wires and cables? Do they become more efficient in the cold?
The only thing, I don't know about efficiency, but what ends up happening is think of the metallurgy of wire in the wintertime or when it's cold, the wire is going to contract. So if your wire antenna is like a banjo string and you got it tuned for a high C, when it gets cold, it's going to get tighter. And so it's going to go up another note or two, and it becomes a little more brittle. So it'll be susceptible to breakage. Conversely, heat is going to cause the wire to expand, and it'll start drooping a little bit more, and then it'll go down a note or two from that high C. So
I see the look on your face a little bit. I know you want to bring the Seinfeld reference of shrinkage into this. There's something I can tell mischievous about you today. Like, imagine yourself getting out of a cold swimming pool.
Yes, exactly. So think of it that way.
If you want, or just don't think of me and Steve at all and shrink it.
Please don't think of us when you're thinking of that.
Christian's always in a warm
definitely be
bath.
shrinkage.
I'm always in a warm pool of myself. All right, friends. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for that question, Jeffrey. And yes, I do have a lot of problems. He didn't ask me that, but it's true. Thanks for coming by today. Congratulations to Neil. It's so nice. Thank you to Mike, Kilo Juliet 4, United Delta Oscar, for stopping by and telling us how these things are selected, what they were looking for when they picked the Educator of the Year. Wonderful, outstanding. He's just dedicated to the kids and to the hobby, and he's been in it since he was a kid. Speaking
God, I
of,
remember when he got licensed as a kid, and it's just like, wow, it was awesome.
well, Neil was doing code at like 5 years old. He was doing
exactly.
it. You know? He's I'm going to say now he's 50. I'm going to guess he's 50 now. He's been in the game 45 years, and he's giving it back. I want to start a segment that's paying it forward. So send us your stories about these, outstanding hams that are out there doing these things and paying it forward, if you will. So look for us at the YouTube channel. Before I lose the power again, I don't know what causes that little spike. It's happened to me in the past, but luckily it continues with you. You're able to pick it up, which is good. But the YouTube channel, visit that, poke around some of the playlists there, and you'll see some of the things that we're putting together there. And you're welcome to subscribe. Click the bell. The bell lets you know whenever we do something, except for touching my screen that went to sleep. They're gonna have that. It makes me feel like I'm
gonna
tapped
do this.
into this.
I got to do the same with that one.
You go to sleep on me now. I want to feel the energy of the waves. So tomorrow we will be back on the stream and back on the air for the Sunday evening HF net, 7:00 Central. Steve will take to the air. I'll provide the play-by-play for you. Hopefully we'll be able to hear each other, hear some people, make some contacts, so we'll actually do radio as we send out the live stream. So that's cool. Doing a thing on Wednesday nights, that's cool. More on that as we get closer, but we've got something good coming up tomorrow, so we'll talk about that when we get a little closer. What did we miss, Steve?
I think we got it covered. Just remember, celebrate the hottie of all hotties,
Tomorrow,
Betty White's 99th birthday of this tomorrow on Sunday. So
bless her heart.
Bless her heart, and tip your coffee to Betty or adult beverage. But
sit in a warm pool of yourself and stretch out. Think about Betty White from 1946 or so.
There you go.
And she's still beautiful, wonderful. What a great run she's had. All right, well, we'll button it up here and say thank you. And 7-3, leave your questions. We'll pick them up in the chat. All that.
Thanks, everyone, for joining us. We really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, it's good. We look forward to this every Saturday, getting on the air and being with you. And we will catch you soon. 73 for now. Yeah, the phrase that pays, if you can, we want to take care of each other, our families, and stay safe out there. But if you can, by all means, please try and stay above the noise. See, I forget it sometimes. And then they say it back to me, and they're like, dude,
you forgot the phrase.
Your thing. You're not doing your catchphrase. Come on, man. Goodbye, everybody. We'll see you again soon.
7-3 all.
To join the 100 Watts in a Wire community, visit 100wattsindawire.com.